the queen who commanded kings. Did you know that in 17th century Africa, there lived a woman whose very presence could stop the heartbeat of a soldier? Her name was Ninga. Some called her a queen, others called her a demon. But history remembers her as the woman who outsmarted an empire. The story begins in the kingdom of Ndongo. The year was around 1583, deep within what is now Angola. The Mbundu people lived between rivers, forests, and rolling plains. The land was rich, the people were proud. But the world around them was changing fast. The Portuguese had arrived on the coast. At first, they traded cloth for ivory, rum for gold. But soon, their ships carried something darker. Chains, shackles, men and women bound for the slave ports of Luanda. The Portuguese wanted slaves. And to get them, they needed to break the local kingdoms, and Ndongo stood in their way. Nzinga was born into this storm. She was not meant to rule. Her father was King Kuluwanji. Her brother, Mngolambande, was heir. But from childhood, Nzinga was different. While others practiced dancing, she practiced throwing spears. While others listened quietly, she questioned everything. She learned languages. She learned how to negotiate. And she watched every gesture, every betrayal, every promise made and broken by the Portuguese. As a girl, she saw how the kingdom was slowly strangled by foreign greed. Ndongo's nobles began selling their own people to gain Portuguese favor. The royal family turned on itself. And through it all, Nzinga waited. Let's float over to the capital of Ndongo. The royal court was a place of ceremony and suspicion. The king, her father, was growing old. The Portuguese were advancing inland. And somewhere in the shadows, a woman was preparing for the role destiny would soon demand. When Nzinga's father died, her brother became king. But fear consumed him. He accused his own family of plotting against him. Nzinga was forced to flee. The once noble court turned into chaos. Portuguese forces took advantage, setting up puppet chiefs, controlling trade, enslaving entire villages. And Ndongo was collapsing. Then in 1622, a letter arrived from Luanda. The Portuguese governor wanted peace talks. For most, it was a trap. But Nzinga saw an opportunity. Her brother, unsure of what to do, turned to her. He sent Nzinga to negotiate. Picture the moment. A royal canoe glides down the Kwanza River. Its oars slice through still water. The sun burns gold on the horizon. On the deck stands Nicotal, composed, draped in crimson silk. Around her are guards, carrying spears polished like mirrors. She is not yet queen, but already she commands like one. When she entered the governor's hall in Luanda, the Portuguese nobles sneered. They expected a native woman in rags. Instead, she arrived dressed as a monarch. When offered no chair, she did not flinch. One of her servants kneeled, and Nzinga sat on his back as if it were a throne. The message was clear. She bowed to no one. That day, she spoke with calm precision. She demanded the Portuguese stop raiding her lands. She proposed alliance. She converted to Christianity on the spot, taking the name Dona Ana de Souza*. The governor, impressed by her intelligence, agreed to peace. For a moment, Ndongo breathed again. But peace was fragile. Her brother grew jealous of her success. Old tensions returned. When he died under mysterious circumstances, many whispered that Nzinga's ambition had finally taken its throne. Truth or not, the crown soon rested on her head. Queen Nzinga of Ndongo was now ruler of a nation surrounded by enemies. The Portuguese wanted her land. Local chiefs doubted her power. And neighboring kingdoms watched carefully, unsure whether to fear or follow. Yet she did not hesitate. She reorganized her armies. She built alliances with other African leaders. She opened her ports to trade, but on her terms. And when diplomacy failed, she turned to war. Let's drift to the battlefield. The air is thick with dust. Drums echo through the forest. Portuguese soldiers march in formation, their armor shining under the sun. From the tree line, Ngundu warriors emerge silent, steady, fearless. And at their head rides Nzinga, spear raised, voice cutting through the wind. For years, she fought a war of resistance. Sometimes she won, sometimes she lost. But she never surrendered. Nzinga understood that wars were not only fought with weapons. They were fought with ideas. She studied Portuguese tactics. She learned to play one rival against another. She adopted European firearms while keeping African mobility. Her army became a mirror of her mind, flexible, unpredictable, and fiercely loyal. By the 1630s, the Portuguese pushed her out of Ndongo. Many rulers would have accepted defeat. Nzinga did the opposite. She crossed the river and seized the neighboring kingdom of Matamba. Within months, she established a new capital. She renamed her court. She restructured the economy. She built an army from freed slaves and refugees. In time, she turned Matamba into one of the most powerful states in Central Africa. And here begins the legend that would echo through centuries. Some stories said her court was filled with female warriors. Some said her guards were men chosen for strength, tested through duels, loyal only to her. Some claim she demanded absolute devotion, even to death. Whether true or embellished, these tales carried a message. The queen allowed no weakness near her throne. Let's float over to another royal disaster. In Luanda, Portuguese officials argued over how to crush her rebellion. They sent spies, missionaries, even fake allies. None succeeded. Nzinga met every betrayal with strategy, every attack with counterattack. By 1641, the world around her shifted again. The Dutch seized Luanda from the Portuguese. Seeing opportunity, Nzinga allied with the Dutch. She offered troops. She traded supplies. For a brief, dazzling moment, she became a central power in the region, balancing European rivals against one another like pieces on a board. But wars changed tides. When the Portuguese retook Luanda in 1648, Nzinga's allies vanished. She retreated once more to her inland capital, yet her resolve did not fade. Even in her 60s, she led her people with iron discipline. She trained new generations. She built towns. She introduced laws protecting women and former slaves. Her rule was not just about survival, it was about sovereignty. By the time she reached her final years, Nzinga had transformed from warrior to stateswoman. She corresponded with European envoys. She re-established peace with Portugal. She ensured that her kingdom would endure beyond her death. When she died in 1663, the land mourned her as both queen and symbol. For decades after, her story spread across the continent and across oceans, changing shape, growing in legend, mixing truth with myth. Some said men dueled for the honor of standing near her. Others said she could turn her enemies into allies with a single glance. The truth, however, is simpler and far more powerful. Nzinga fought for the right to decide her own destiny. The queen who outsmarted empires, the year is 1641. The Kwanzaa River glimmers under a pale dawn. Canoes glide across its surface carrying warriors, supplies, and the hopes of a queen who refuses to vanish. Nzinga of Ndongo and Matamba has been fighting for 2 decades. Her armies have bled, her cities have burned, yet her will stands unbroken. Word arrives from the coast. The Portuguese, her oldest enemies, have fallen to the Dutch. Luanda, the jewel of Angola's trade, now flies a new flag. The ocean wind carries change. Nzinga smiles. For her, this is more than news. It is opportunity. Let's float closer to her court in Matamba. The queen sits beneath a woven canopy of palm and gold. Beside her, envoys from the Dutch West India Company wait nervously. They have traveled weeks through forest and fever to meet her. They expect a savage ruler. Instead, they find a diplomat dressed in European silks, speaking with calm authority in their own tongue. She welcomes them with grace. She offers trade guns, powder, cloth in exchange for alliance. She promises soldiers and strategy. In return, she asks one thing: recognition of her as the rightful queen of Ndongo and Matamba. The Dutch agree. They need her as much as she needs them. The alliance is sealed with gifts, laughter, and cautious trust. That night, drums echo through the hills. The people dance. The queen's guards raise torches that flicker like constellations on earth. To her soldiers, the Dutch victory feels like divine justice. To Nzinga, it is simply the next move in a long game. Let's glide across the forests of Matamba. Her kingdom hums with order. Markets fill with traders from faraway lands. Caravan routes snake through the savannas, carrying salt, ivory, and iron. Her people respect her discipline. Every village knows her laws. Every soldier knows her signal. But the queen's life is no courtly peace. Her enemies regroup beyond the river. The Portuguese, now exiled from the coast, wait for their chance to return. Their governor swears vengeance. Their priests call her the devil in royal robes. And even within Matamba, whispers of dissent rise among chiefs who envy her strength. Nzinga senses every movement. She calls her council. The hall fills with voices, captains, priests, envoys, warriors. She listens. Then she speaks softly, her tone like steel beneath silk. "We fight not for revenge," she says. "We fight to live free. If they call us demons, let them." A free woman has no need for their blessings. In the seasons that follow, she leads a campaign that becomes legend. Her armies, trained in both African and European tactics, move with ghostly precision. They strike from forest paths, vanish into marshes, and reappear miles away. Portuguese columns collapse under ambush. Their forts crumble. The Dutch marvel at her discipline. For a time, victory feels near. But history turns as swiftly as a river in flood. In 1648, the Dutch lose Luanda to the returning Portuguese fleet. The alliance collapses overnight. Nzinga's supply lines break. Her trade with the coast ends. Her Dutch allies sail away, leaving promises in the wind. Now she stands alone again. Let's move to her war tent in the highlands. The queen studies a map drawn on bark. Each mark tells a story: villages lost, rivers controlled, soldiers fallen. She breathes deeply. She knows what must be done. She orders the army to retreat inland. She will rebuild once more. The march begins. Her soldiers carry what they can. Her people follow behind, tired but loyal. Through forest and rain, they move. Along the way, she gathers refugees, men, women, children, each finding safety under her banner. What began as an army becomes a nation on the move. Months pass. They reach the plateau of Matamba. There Nzinga begins again. She rebuilds her capital. She calls artisans and farmers. She reopens trade routes toward Congo and Lunda. She sends letters to the Portuguese offering peace, but on her own terms. And while diplomats ride to and from her court, she trains her warriors anew. In time, her capital becomes a marvel of resilience. Travelers describe wide roads, bustling markets, and a court alive with ceremony. The queen appears each morning draped in crimson and white, surrounded by guards chosen for loyalty and strength. She leads prayers, receives envoys, and decides justice with calm fairness. It is here that legend begins to overtake memory. Foreign visitors write of strange customs. Some claim that her personal guard consisted of young men who had to prove their strength in ritual combat before serving near her. Others describe women soldiers who fought fiercely in her honor. Some stories grow wilder, suggesting that men had to duel for her favor or even for the right to enter her palace. These tales, repeated by traders and chroniclers, travel across oceans and centuries. Some are true in spirit, if not in detail. Nzinga demanded loyalty. She ruled with discipline. She chose her companions not for birth, but for courage. In a world ruled by men, she built her own Order One, where devotion was tested through deeds, not bloodlines. Let's float to a quieter scene. Night has fallen over Matamba. The fires burn low. The queen sits alone in her chamber, writing letters by candlelight. Her handwriting is sharp and deliberate. One letter is to the Portuguese governor. She offers truce but warns that betrayal will be met with fire. Another letter is to a missionary. She speaks of faith, forgiveness, and the need to guide her people toward learning. She is not a woman of one face. She is ruler, diplomat, warrior, and believer all at once. In her later years, she begins to favor peace over conquest. She invites missionaries to her land. She reopens trade. She negotiates treaties that protect her borders and preserve her people's independence. She grants land to churches, but keeps their influence in check. Every move is balance, every word a strategy. By now, she is in her 70s. Her hair is streaked with silver, but her posture remains regal. Her generals kneel in her presence. Foreign visitors describe her eyes as fierce yet calm, like someone who has seen too much and still chooses to build rather than destroy. One European traveler wrote that her court resembled that of a European prince. Another said she ruled as one born to command. Even her enemies admitted respect. And yet, in her final decade, the weight of time presses on her shoulders. The Portuguese grow stronger again. European ships bring more soldiers, more missionaries, more traders. The slave trade expands. She cannot stop the tide, but she can hold her ground, so she focuses on what endures. She reforms laws. She sets rules for inheritance, marriage, and trade. She ensures that women can hold property and lead in local councils. She prepares her sister to rule after her. Every choice is a seed for the future. Let's drift to her final years. Zinga now lives mostly in her palace at Matamba's heart. The court remains alive with ritual. Drums echo at sunrise. Messengers arrive daily. Children play in the courtyards. The queen watches them and smiles faintly. Her people have survived. That, to her, is victory enough. In 1663, as the rains return to the savannas, the queen grows ill. She gathers her council one last time. She reminds them that unity is the crown's true strength. Then she rests. When she dies, silence sweeps across Matamba. The markets close. Drums stop. Warriors kneel. For 3 days, fires burn across the hills. She ruled for more than 40 years. She fought 3 empires. She saw kingdoms fall and rise again. She lived long enough to see her people free. The legend that refused to die. The year is 1663. The drums of mourning fade across Matamba's hills. The rain softens the earth around the royal tomb. Candles flicker beside her resting place. And somewhere in that silence, a truth settles in: the queen may be gone, yet her spirit will not rest quietly. Generations pass. Traders come and go. Empires rise and fall. But in the villages along the Kwanzaa River, stories about Nzinga never fade. Elders tell children that once there was a woman who faced muskets with nothing but her voice. They say she turned enemies into allies and slaves into soldiers. They say she ruled so fiercely that even death had to ask her permission. Let's float through time. It is now the 18th century. The Portuguese still control the coast. They build forts, plant churches, and send missionaries deeper inland. Yet in Matamba, her legacy shapes every decision. Queens continue to rule. Women sit in councils. The laws she left remain in practice. Her memory becomes not just legend, but blueprint. By the 19th century, Africa begins to tremble under new colonial pressure. Europe redraws maps. Foreign flags creep inland. But in Angola, resistance carries her name. Rebels whisper her story before battle. Her image becomes a shadow beside every freedom fighter's torch. Some call her Saint Nzinga. Some call her Mother of Warriors. To others, she becomes a symbol of cunning diplomacy, the queen who could wear silk in one court and armor in another. Let's drift toward the colonial archives. European historians reading old missionary reports find traces of her life. They write of her intelligence, her ruthlessness, her charisma. But they also distort her story. Some paint her as savage, others as seductress. They struggle to understand a woman who commanded men in a century built for kings. The tales of men dueling for her favor grow louder in these writings. European authors repeat them as curiosities, never realizing how myth and admiration often intertwine. What they could not grasp was the truth behind the exaggeration. Nzinga demanded absolute loyalty. In her court, devotion was a form of survival. Her guards might have trained through combat, not to win her bed, but to prove their courage. The duels were not of desire, but of discipline. As centuries pass, her image shifts again. In the 20th century, when Angola begins its long road toward independence, Nzinga returns as a symbol of national pride. Let's float to the city of Luanda, now bustling with cars, markets, and memories. Murals of her face stretch across concrete walls. Statues rise in her honor. Her spear and crown become emblems of strength. In the 1960s, Angolan freedom movements whisper her name before battles against colonial rule. To them, she is not distant history. She is prophecy fulfilled, a reminder that resistance runs in their blood. In 1975, when Angola finally gains independence, she becomes a founding spirit of the nation's identity. Streets, schools, and institutions bear her name. Poets call her the flame that survived the storm. Even beyond Africa, her legend travels further. Historians revisit the records. Artists paint her portraits. Writers describe her as Africa's Machiavelli, the strategist who defied Europe's empires. Feminists celebrate her as proof that power knows no gender. Let's pause on a modern classroom in Luanda. A teacher stands before a group of students. On the blackboard is written one name ***, Zinga Mbandi ***. The teacher asks, "What do we learn from her?" A hand rises. A young girl answers softly, "That we can be free if we never stop thinking." The room falls quiet. The teacher nods. That, she says, is Ninga's real legacy. Because her story is not just about war or diplomacy. It is about mind over muscle, about strategy over strength. She lived in a world built by conquest, yet she turned conquest into conversation. She learned her enemy's language. She studied their religion. She used their rules against them until the empire itself grew confused. Let's move gently across the centuries once more. The myths remain. Some still tell of duels for her love. Some still claim she bathed in the blood of traitors. Others picture her surrounded by women warriors like an African Amazon. But beneath every myth lies something constant: respect. Even her enemies recorded admiration. Even missionaries admitted her wisdom, and perhaps that is how legends survive. They change shape but never lose their light. Today, historians trace her lineage through oral tradition and Portuguese records. They piece together a portrait that feels both human and extraordinary. She was born into chaos, rose through tragedy, and ruled with a balance of ferocity and grace. Her story, when told truthfully, becomes something larger than conquest. It becomes a study of leadership. She understood that power without intelligence fades, that diplomacy without courage fails, that peace without justice is only silence before another storm. Let's drift to her final resting place once more. The earth is quiet. The grasses sway softly under the Angolan sun. Villagers still visit, leaving offerings of flowers and shells. Children trace her name into the dust. Above them, a wind moves through the trees, whispering her name in the old Mundu tongue asterisk, Nzinga Ambandi asterisk. She lives not as a ghost, but as a lesson. Her life reminds us that resistance can be elegant, that leadership can be learned, that a single voice, calm yet unyielding, can shake empires. And so, when we hear stories that men dueled to reach her, or that she ruled with impossible power, we might smile and remember legends grow where courage once stood. Nzinga did not need duels to prove her strength. Her life was the duel, fought every day against fear, greed, and history itself. Let's float away now from Matamba, across the Kwanzaa River, across time itself. The water glows under the same sun that once lit her crown. The story ends where it began, with a woman who refused to bow. Queen Nzinga of Ndongo and Matamba, warrior, diplomat, ruler, legend, the queen who outlasted empires,